Hello and welcome to the Lifestyle-Based Healing Podcast. I'm Dylan and I have my co-host and mom here with me today, Robin.
Hi everyone.
And today we have a topic kind of along the lines of research, really deciphering what research is actually good and deserves our trust and which research is shaky at best and how to decipher those things. And so I'm really excited, of course, to have you on and talk about this because you, Mom, went to grad school. You lived a life where for years you read through a lot of these research papers and had to learn how to decipher and weigh all the evidence. And for me, I recently, over the past 2 months, have done a lot of research into acid reflux, producing a lot of blogs around it. And so that inevitably took me into reading a lot of these sorts of papers. I'll tell you what, it's not easy reading. It's not like reading a novel. I felt like, at the end of maybe 5 or 10 papers, I would catch myself just like scrolling and reading line after line, but not actually retaining any of the information, so kind of glazed over. But one paper in particular kind of made me realize maybe not all this stuff is. It made me realize just how difficult it is to understand all this stuff. I want to zero in on a specific paper that I read. It's a meta-analysis on acid reflux and what triggers which dietary triggers are, and all the research around those. Do you mind, Mom, just like telling us a little bit about what a meta-analysis is about and why it's important?
Yeah, it's a really good way to start your research, actually, because it'll...
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. He didn't consult me first, by the way. Not all topics have them, but it's a good way to really look and see, because they take all of the research, well, not all of it, they'll tell you what the parameters are of what research they're looking at, and then the researchers look at the research that's out there and put it into one paper. And they often will give you a schematic where you can look and see how it rates as far as are these papers valid, not valid, how strong is the evidence, that sort of thing. With that said, it is a good place to start. It's not the only place you should be. And then also sometimes what I learned in grad school is some of the research you'll go through and you'll read the conclusions initially, the abstract, or you'll even look and see who funded this study. And that would kind of give you a heads up as to, do I even want to continue reading it? Because if you want something super non-biased, you might look for things that aren't funded by... one comes to mind. I was doing some brain research and the grapes and how the grapes affected brain research, and it was funded by Welch's grapes, right? And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I want to look at some other research other than this. So the meta-analysis is a good place to start.
Yeah, so basically I loved it because it did what I was trying to do initially in my research, is like read every single paper and come to a conclusion, where they kind of did a lot of the filtering for me and weighing the evidence and aggregated essentially a lot of studies into one kind of summary study. And when I was reading that paper, the first thing that I saw was they have a rating for evidence levels. And so I'll kind of bring it up on the screen for you guys to see, but there's ratings between A, B, C, D, and E. And my guess is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but in reading this, evidence A would be, we have a very solid understanding of the relationship between these variables or how these foods affect reflux. And we know that through really well-designed studies that are the gold standard. So it's eliminated all the bias possible, it's eliminated all the experimental issues that can come up when experimenting. And then you kind of go down in that, I guess, maybe power, like
relevance,
explanatory power or relevance, as you go down to E, and E at the bottom being either there's studies that are directly conflicting, or they're just not enough evidence to make any sort of conclusions. Level D, working up from there, is just an expert opinion, just weighing in, which I saw a couple of those, which is interesting to see. And then evidence C is based on like population studies or clinical trials that were done, but they were a little bit flawed, case reports. And then evidence B, which was some of the stuff, is cohort or case control trials non-randomized or uncontrolled clinical trials. So can you explain a little bit about this?
Sure. Sure. When I was in graduate school, we didn't look at this so much. A lot of our criteria would be, we would go for the random control, the gold standard. That's usually the people in the study is randomized randomly. They get put in different groups. There's usually a placebo group comparing the test group. The size of the study matters. And then we would often look at how old is the study, and so sometimes the criteria would be like we want them in the last 10 years, because especially in nutrition, things change really fast, and so that doesn't mean that the old research isn't valid. A lot of it is, because new research corroborates what was found in that old research, but we're always learning new things, and so. So you're right. This is just a kind of a grid. What you'll see a lot in nutrition is actually observational studies, self-reported studies. Which makes it really hard to make the studies valid.
Yeah, because that's one thing I noticed when they did the summary, and they kind of ranked. I'll put this on the screen as well.
Yeah.
But when you looked at some of these, they listed, like, for instance, they're trying to figure out if tobacco or smoking triggers reflux, if it triggers some of the things that they think cause reflux. And so, for instance, here they looked at 12 trials, and they're all B-level evidence. And then you look down on all the other factors, such as alcohol, chocolate, spicy foods, mint, you name it, and there is no A-level evidence.
None. Yeah.
So why is that? And what does that mean?
Yeah, and what it means is just there's nothing been relevant. I mean, clinically significant. So they might have done the studies, but there was no, they haven't done the studies, and there's nothing that's been there's not a significant finding to make it really a significant.
Like statistically significant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's also not the right structure study, right?
No, I think sometimes...
Because this was pretty frustrating for me when I was doing research, and I imagine people trying to figure out for their own situation of acid reflux. Like, there's so much information on the internet that's just ping-ponged around on websites and regurgitated, and I can tell it's like a lot of it just copy-pasted.
Yeah.
And when I actually looked into the science of, like, well, do spicy foods actually trigger reflux? What about, like, bicarbonates? Do those actually buffer? Do they actually work? Like, all these websites are just publishing not real clinical evidence. It's more just like, oh, there's trends or people reporting this. And then that's going to lead people to then remove certain foods or try to eliminate all the foods and be left with nothing to eat. So I would imagine it makes it really difficult for someone to actually figure out what's going on with their reflux.
It does. And there's this idea of, is it clinically relevant? And so, like, for example, it might show that, hey, citrus foods do, which it didn't show that, can contribute to acid reflux. But is it relevant to you? Is really the question. Do you notice that makes a difference for you? Is that what's triggering it? And, what I think a lot of these things do is they're against treating symptoms. They're not getting to the root cause.
Okay.
What could be going on. But I think back to the research, I'm not really sure what your question is.
So that leads me to one thing.
Yeah.
One thing that some research noticed is that looking at the summary of research, it actually points to the fact that there's no one individual food that's going to do it for you.
No.
But rather a holistic pattern of eating.
Right.
Which makes total sense to me, because that's exactly what we find in practice.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's so many conflicting studies, and one person can run a study where 10 people are injected with fat into their stomach and they have no reflux, and then the exact same thing, they put a pipe down your throat, put fats in your stomach, and they do find like all 10 of the people will have symptoms of reflux after that. Could just be that there's a lot more going on than just hyper-focusing on one individual food or food group.
Yes, and that individual person. Okay, yeah. So if you think about people, and this is why nutrition science is so difficult, is everyone, we all have the same body parts pretty much, but we're all different. And we have different sensitivities and predispositions and all of that. And so
also, like, everyone enters the study differently. Like, you ate something different the day before,
exactly,
and that can have effects too.
And you're counting on them to. And the other thing, if you're doing self-reporting, that's really hard, because people aren't always very accurate about reporting what they actually ate. And the way, that's why nutrition science is so difficult, is because you really want to, if you really want to get good at it, you have to, like, literally put people and feed them. And make sure they don't have any access to any other food, and
don't leave the room,
and don't leave the room, and you know, it's very difficult.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's why there's, like, of all these like, because they reviewed like 20 plus studies, none of them were A-level evidence. Do you think that's why?
Possibly, yeah. I think it is, and it's expensive. It's expensive to do a study like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, who wants to go live in a sterile environment where you're only eating certain foods and getting tested? And people do it, but it can be very prohibitive.
Yeah,
I think, and so maybe that's why. I don't actually know why it is, but it's, and you have to make sure it's ethical to be doing it on people. Okay.
Yeah.
There is that. So.
Okay, gotcha. And so this is just looking at acid reflux and going through various foods that might trigger it. Is all nutrition science like this?
Yeah, I would say it probably is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we know anything about nutrition then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say it all is, because there are things that we can study, and we do know there's correlations between certain foods, specifically with acid reflux. Is that what you're asking?
No, not just acid reflux,
Okay.
but this is like a summary of, and it's not all these studies were super recent. I think they selected studies from like the 80s to like maybe 2010 earliest. But if this is, because for me, I'm like personally unsatisfied with the fact that we don't have A-level conclusive evidence on any of this stuff. So my question is, if this is what it's like in the domain of looking at acid reflux and how diet affects reflux, is that how all nutrition science is with?
No, I think probably not. I mean, I can't speak to how it all is, but if you think about, studies cost money. So where is the funding coming from? Can you get funding to do more research on acid reflux? Okay, there's bigger issues, with nutrition, and bigger health issues that probably get more funding and more research spent on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how does that decision happen? Because that makes total sense, but like, if all the money is going, so the reason why we don't know this stuff definitively isn't because there's research being done,
but since 2010.
Well, no, there's more recent stuff.
Okay.
It's just the particular meta-analysis that I got.
Okay.
But like, if all these studies are being done, how come we still don't understand the relationships?
It's tricky.
So
first of all,
it's the human
factor.
So setting up real experiments.
Okay, the human factor. I think that maybe the research is being done, it's just not published. Okay, so you think about everything that could be being done in the research environment may never make it to a published journal. Does that make sense? So, for example, when I did my own research, when I was in graduate school, you had to jump. It's a lot to get your research published, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops, and it's just a lot of work, and it may not be making it even into a really well-known journal. And so a lot of the research that gets published is either a hot topic, or it's filling a niche where there's no research around that out there, and so it might get published. Doesn't mean it's going to be picked up and looked at in a meta-analysis, especially if it's not a well-known journal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that a person, one of the authors that I really enjoy, T. Colin Campbell, he was a big nutrition researcher, and was doing, groundbreaking research a couple decades ago. And, he was in the research community, and, they were all hobnobbing, and they were kind of assuring him that his research would be published, and then it wasn't. Okay, and this was like, because what the research found was going against the grain of some current thinking. All right, so there are gatekeepers.
Yeah.
We like to think that it's unbiased, and maybe it's better now. I don't know, but humans are humans.
Yeah, seems unlikely. But.
Right, humans are humans, and it's just like especially in nutrition, there's a lot of factors that go into what we're taught to eat, what we're encouraged to eat, the guidelines of what we should eat, and sometimes we don't want the research that counteracts that gets pushed and gets sort of squashed, I believe. So what you might be finding is not, there might be research out there that hasn't been published, or it's not in a journal that got picked up in a meta-analysis, or it's not actually, something that they find relevant to publish.
So, first of all, there has to be interest in the study for it to happen. Mm-hmm. And I imagine not just academic interest, but some sort of financial interest too.
That's what drives it.
In the findings and whether the research even gets done. Which is why it makes sense that, we don't really care about really knowing how spicy foods affect reflux or whether mint does it or not, because who's going to profit from knowing that? I guess.
Well, and believe me, if there was...
People are going to not profit, basically.
Well, yeah, and, I mean, if there is something out there, let's take turmeric, for example, okay? Studies started coming out saying, wow, it's a really great anti-inflammatory. Right. Tons of money started getting poured into that because now they can pull out the actual ingredient that they really think triggers that and sell it as a supplement.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of research got done around that. Now, I think there is some idea, especially with nutrition, that sometimes we're always quick to find the exact ingredient, pull it out, and mass produce it and be able to take it in a pill. That misses the whole synergistic thing of eating the actual food, but, they want to make money off of it. And so the money got thrown into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's largely what I discovered in this 2-month journey into, hyper-focusing on this one problem, acid reflux, and especially when it came to the dietary advice around it, like doing the research, it just made me realize, like, researchers kept pointing to the fact that, hey, it's probably not this one food, like if the research meant, or coffee or something. It's more of a holistic, like, your general pattern of eating.
Yes.
And so with that being said, like, is there a reason to believe that the best way to guide your nutrition is based on what works in practice?
Yes.
And then kind of looking at the research, with maybe a skeptical eye or just for some background information, but not necessarily as your main point of focus, because that's what it seems like to me. It's like,
well, and I think it's
like
hard.
Some of the research is reliable, but some of it's like very patchwork. You're not going to get like the answers you're looking for. Like, I went and spent 2 months trying to get the answers I was looking for, and I got nowhere.
Yeah, and I can tell you what you found is typically the advice we're taught as dietitians to tell people.
Right,
acid reflux. Avoid these foods. These 5 or 6, 7
everywhere
foods.
I went, it's just like the same broken record being
turned
played.
over. And what I have found in practice is that it doesn't really work that well for people. Okay, it doesn't, because they'll Dr. Google it, okay, and they'll try it, and they still end up in my office. And what I've realized is like, okay, we need to look at everything you're doing, not just food. Food's a big important part of it, but lifestyle too. Right, and so what might be driving some of these other things, and so science is not going to solve every problem, I don't think, because again, we're humans and it's different for everybody. It gives us a direction to go, though.
Yeah. So is there some science that you've kind of pointed yourself towards, or used maybe like big studies that just kind of study? I don't know. What sort of research do you usually rely on?
Yeah.
Or base your own kind of nutrition beliefs on?
Yeah. So I sort of will look and see, what random control trials out there. And especially when you're doing research, you always have confounding factors. For example, the result was this. Well, was it the broccoli that you're testing, or was it because these people actually were healthier to start with? They had healthier lifestyles to start with. So you always have these confounding factors. And so you kind of have to take that in consideration. I think I listen to my clients.
Yeah.
And really say, what's working for you, what's going on with you. And when you speak about acid reflux in general, because that's kind of the research that you were looking at, what I know is that it really is a bigger gut issue, typically. And so these are palliative, sort of easy things people can do that we throw out there and we're taught to throw out there. But I almost always know, is it a one-time thing for you that it just happened and you had it? I've had acid reflux once when I was pregnant, and I was like, this is horrible. How do people live with this? Never have had it again. And so it was a one-time thing. It's just a daily thing. And then that's what we have to dive into lifestyle and what you're eating, a pattern of eating, and what is your gut health really doing.
Yeah, and that's where the research is actually more recently starting to go, is towards more of the root causes.
The root cause, yeah.
And studies are starting to come up where they show, the bacteria in your gut is actually one of the causal factors in reflux, or at least that's what they found. So that's definitely where it's headed, but of course it's going to take years probably for them to actually, and it might end up just like this anyways.
It might.
Big maybes and like
it might again because our subjects are people, okay, and so I think it's just difficult, and sometimes you'll find things in studies that will have a statistical significance, and, but then it doesn't really change the outcome in clinic, with what we do for people. Does that make sense? Or the result people have. And so it's just like, is what they're telling you here, is it actually showing up in the population of helping people or not? And so that's part of it. And then with research, I think the biggest thing when I have clients always say, I read this research. I go, send it to me. I want to read it. And it's just like, always compare, what are they testing against? Okay.
Yeah.
And the
devil's definitely in the details.
Yeah. The biggest one that usually comes up for me is, around coconut oil, of where coconut oil is just like, well, yeah, it's better than lard and tallow and butter, possibly, but is it better than nothing? They didn't test that, and so always be aware of what was actually tested against.
Yeah, that brings up, because I had a third chart.
Oh, you have a third chart? Okay.
They have one where they talk about trials where people actually made lifestyle interventions or completely stopped eating or consuming one of these potential triggers. And they found a lot less trials on that, which kind of speaks to the fact that funding's the thing. These trials are way more intensive, because typically they'll stick machines or sensory equipment down their throats to measure the actual reflux happening in their stomach. Anyways, first of all, there's very few trials on any of the stuff that people would be asking questions about: chocolate, spicy food, citrus, any of that stuff. And then, while, for instance, tobacco, the research showed a lot of evidence that there is no effect to smoking and getting GERD symptoms or acid reflux symptoms. Beyond these three studies, everything points to the fact that smoking is really one of the worst things you can do for acid reflux. And if you actually zoom in on those studies, all three of them, the ones that they put in this meta-analysis at least, were just 24-hour trials. So they got people to stop smoking for 24 hours. In fact, one of them, they had all the people that they were measuring smoke 20 cigarettes the day before. So, first of all, you have to say, who's going to be able to do that if you're not, a chronic smoker? And then they stop for 24 hours. And what we know about lifestyle is 24 hours is almost nothing.
Yeah.
Whether you do something bad for yourself or something good. If you had a salad today, great, woohoo. You got to do that multiple days in a row.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's not really a fair analysis to say, we know that tobacco has no effect on your symptoms because the trials you did were unfair, essentially.
Yeah, it makes me think that the researchers were smokers and they wanted to find something positive to say about it, right?
That makes total sense to me.
or it was funded by the tobacco company. So you have to look at those things. I mean, it sounds cynical, but I mean, humans are biased. Humans have a natural bias about certain things, and so that's interesting. So yeah, when it comes to acid reflux, it's more than just. If it's just one food, you're lucky. Yeah, you're lucky.
Cool. That's about all I wanted to talk about. Anything else come to mind?
No, I think, research, I don't want to bash it too hard because we do need it. And it has, look at how far we've come with knowledge about certain things. And so it has to be out there. But
it's almost one of those things you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
Like a huge grain of salt, because so much funding pressure goes into it. Like, for instance, the reason why so much of the research now comes to mind from discussing with you, why there's way more research starting to be on the gut side of acid reflux, because we can put bacteria in a pill and potentially sell that to people, and so there's profit motive in that. So is it really seeking the truth? Yes and no.
Yeah,
right?
and you see really the dollar drives it. So look at all the weight loss drugs and all the research that's gone into that. A lot of research has gone into type 2 diabetes because you can sell medication for that. And a lot of good byproducts come out of that research of lifestyle interventions, but it's not always the focus.
Yeah, so you're not getting like the whole picture. It's sort of like,
because that's who has the money to fund the research.
Yeah.
For sure.
Makes total sense.
So anyway, I think do take it with a grain of salt, and like I said, there is a spot for it, but just because something says, research shows this, be educated. No,
or they use a lot of tricky words too, like shows or suggest or is linked to, and then we take it to mean, that this is the way it is, and that's not what those words mean in terms of research. Right?
No. And how big was the research? An N of 3, I mean, it's like, okay, I always joke with my clients, it's like, you're an N of 1. We're going to just test this on you and see how it goes, right? And that's fine. If it works for them, it makes a difference, okay? But, the larger studies are more valid. Yeah.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're on. And if you're looking for further support and help, you can go to our website, therevitalizecenter.com. You'll find courses and community and all sorts of helpful stuff there from us. Or just keep following our channel. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one.